Hello, this is David Hrostoski, and this is an intro to Be. So what we're going to be doing is going through some old recordings from back in late 2016, all the way up to today, as well as hearing from Be, so that you can get an idea of who this being is, what's going on, what this phenomena is. We're just diving in. This is an intro to this channeling phenomena. This is an intro to my story opening as a channel, and this is also an introduction to this particular being. So the next voice that you hear is going to be B, and he's going to bring through the intro to an intro to B. Hello. It is a pleasure, as always, to be here transmitting in this particular way through David. What I want to be able to do from the very beginning for this little intro, other than saying hello, it's lovely to have you here exploring this phenomena, is to lay a bit of a foundation. This channeling phenomena is odd in so many ways. We understand that. We see what the consensus is. We see, even in David's own neurology, what the challenges are to accepting a phenomena like this at face value. The fact that David, as a human being, in a reality that is completely unknown, that from a scientific consensus is just explainable through physical phenomena, is just chance, a minute probability made manifest through massive scale. The idea that David, in a reality like this, would be making contact with a being that from the scientific consensus doesn't exist is absurd, and we recognize this. However, what many individuals are beginning to recognize and open up to is that there is something else here other than just physical phenomena. Ancient traditions and spiritual traditions, even of your modern age, look to things like energy, meditation, consciousness, and this idea of unity is something that is massively pervasive throughout your collective. So when we look at unity, this idea of everything being the same, ultimately, not only all consciousness, all human beings being connected, their souls being connected, but everything being one thing, there opens up a possibility not just for physical reality to all be one thing, which, of course, if you go back, even the ideas of the Big Bang, everything is one thing that exploded out, stardust went everywhere, and coagulated, you could say, into all of the various rocks and planets and stars that you see today. But it opens up the possibility not just for this physical connectedness, but for a larger, we could say, etheric connectedness, a larger connectedness in consciousness and in energy. And this is the space that many spiritual practitioners around the world are opening up to. Beings of a different nature, non-physical entities, non-physical beings, non-physical consciousness. From the perspective of Earth being the singular thing that is what it is, making contact with this non-physical world, this is still a rather insane phenomena. But from the perspective that many others are opening up to, of each of you being a soul that is landed in a physical body, being that duality, we could say, being a body and a soul, the idea that your body is connected to everything that's physical, and that your soul is connected to everything that is non-physical, that is etheric, we could say, is suddenly slightly less crazy. It opens up the possibility that perhaps these internal phenomena of soul that are continually driving you forward into values that are closer and closer to your purest essence and expression, perhaps this is connected to something larger as well. And this is where we come in. The particular contact that David is making is not with a random being. It is not with an ascended master or with Jesus Christ or with Buddha or with Gandhi. This particular connection is through an oversoul unit, which is the next unit of consciousness up in this etheric reality. It is through this larger interconnected nature of all souls in existence. all of these little individuated pockets of consciousness that you are one of, connected to this larger lattice, we could say. So this phenomena is going just out in that unit and looking for the closest beings to you, the beings that in this interconnected web are the closest to you. They are your relatives, we could say, of soul. They are of many of the same values, much of the same types of expression and essence, much of the same types of radiance and energy. These beings are hyper similar to your individuated soul. And this is the type of connection that's being made here. So one way to look at this is just as David's soul is here in this body, he's making contact with souls that are very similar to him, that have an outside perspective on what this reality is, that live in different pockets of civilization, that live in different pockets of reality. And through that communication with a being, myself, B, who's outside of the box, we could say, there's massive insight to be gleaned. Because I've had my own experiences as a soul. I'm outside of much of the biological hardware confusion and programming of humanity at this particular time. So to be able to peer in and offer my thoughts, to be able to peer in and help David navigate some of these life circumstances, and to be able to peer in and offer guidance for others, to be able to go speak with their particular soul essences and their beings that are very similar to them, other beings that are very, very close in proximity to their soul, to be able to make contact like this throughout this massive interconnected web and pull back relevant data for them. All of these things are involved in this channeling phenomena, and all these things are involved in this particular connection. So who am I and what am I? I am an aspect of David in many ways, of David's higher self is one way to think of this, and we call it the oversoul unit, which we make some distinctions in. In this connection, we bring through this message to provide some clarity, to provide some context here. And from the very beginning, there is this very fascinating thing that's happened through David's progression. And this is something that through these clips will be made very clear. There is a very distinct learning curve of this channeling phenomena. There's a very distinct integration of being able to be with my energetic and to be with the information that comes through, to be able to naturally bring through this connection has been something that's taken quite a bit of time. So reflecting back and looking back and listening back, David's noticed the choppy nature of this connection and how it first started. David notices the voice change, how things used to be much more dramatic and slow, bringing through this energy. All of these things have smoothed out over time, as they do with many others who are exploring this phenomena. So as we go back and as we look at this journey to explore who I am and what my messages are, we'd love to be able to start first with a bit of this introduction of the history of this channel, kind of narrated by David, and we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the core principles that we teach and some of the core things that have turned into this larger business unit, the second paradigm with Miriam, and the co-creation they're creating today. So without further ado, let's go back to the very beginning. This journey almost started by accident. I went to a retreat with my buddy Amateo, who was running a business mastermind, but it was for spiritual entrepreneurs. And at the time, I was highly skeptical, highly afraid of everything spiritual. I was sitting in the hot tub with him before the retreat started. And I was like, yo, bro, I just want to let you know, everything spiritual totally terrifies me. And he was like, all right, man, well, I'm here for you if you need support. By the way, we're going to be talking about literally everything spiritual during these 3 days. And we did. He actually channeled, and he brought in another woman who channeled and led this galactic contact meditation where she called in our oversouls and called in the beings of light that were most aligned to be working with us. And it was at these two experiences that my whole worldview started to shift. Before this, I was so skeptical and so afraid. And I'd gone through some spiritual experiences, and I dabbled in the spiritual community in California, and I'd learned about meditation and learned about all these things and experienced some energetic things and experienced some breath work and had some pretty negative and scary experiences too. And it was just a disorienting hodgepodge that I think many people are experiencing in spiritual communities all around the world, where you are just navigating these realms that have no direction, that have no context, and you're hoping for the best. And often I think the best thing you can get out of a kind of shotgun approach to spirituality is some novel experiences. Not necessarily the best or most helpful, but novel. They're new, they're exciting, and really up until that point, that's all I'd experienced. But it was at this retreat when I watched him channel. One of my really, really good friends, one of my best friends in the world, called in this being, and I felt it land. I saw him change. I saw his voice change. I saw his energy change. I felt him change. And I instantly thought, this is not my friend. This is something else. And that moment opened me up to the possibility that maybe, even though I had all of my doubts and I was so skeptical that maybe there was something to this phenomena, and the message that came through was amazing. The very next day, this woman comes in, Asara. She leads this galactic contact meditation, and I meet this being. And I hear, I'm from Arcturus, and my name is Juvael. And I just sit there, and I feel this presence as if there's someone standing right in front of me. And it's so hard to describe these non-physical experiences because they're so palpable. They're so right there. They're so undeniably true and real, almost like they're physical, but they're not in the same physical plane. And it's so difficult to describe that without experiencing it, but I felt it, and I felt something there. And over the next couple weeks, I just dove in and I asked about everything imaginable. And of course, the major conversations that came up were all of the things I was concerned about. This is a recording of a transmission with Juvael. And the intention going in is to get more clarity around abundance and money. Money, money, money. It is almost embarrassing to think about how much I thought about money, and almost only money at this point in my journey. I was completely obsessed with safety. I was completely obsessed with just finding my bearings in this reality. And I know at some point, I don't know when this realization fully came in, but at some point I recognized that nobody really knew what this reality was around me, and that this big question I had coming out of the Jehovah's Witness religion, this really cushy framework that I had of here's what reality is, here's how everything is going to work, and here's what's coming, the world's going to end, and God's going to make a whole new paradise earth. Coming out of that and coming into a world where nobody knows anything is extremely hard. Extremely, extremely, extremely hard. And my way of dealing with that was, one, searching for truth as much as I could, pushing off of everything God, everything spiritual, becoming a super skeptic about Christianity, about the Jehovah's Witness religion that I came from, and about all religious dogmas across the board, and buckling down to figure out this money thing and how to integrate into society. So lots of the questions I had from the beginning were, hey guys, so can you show me how to make more money? Like, if I'm going to accept this thing, then you guys should have some way to like help me out over here, right? But while they answered my questions and while they taught me things about money and abundance, they also zeroed in on lots of the concerns I had without me even really bringing them up. It's almost like they felt them, they saw them so clearly from the outside looking in, that even though I was asking about money and asking about my life and asking about all these things, that at my core, I was still just confused and highly doubting that this phenomena was real in any way, shape, or form. Your personality, as your friend Amateo put it, is sitting in the background. So I encourage you to try to speak during this time and to feel the difference. I'm happy to take the time to sit and to further understand this with you and to help you conceptualize this. But this is something that is of vital importance for the opening of you as a channel. something that you deeply desire to do. This is of something that is of great importance. Okay. So I'm significantly less firm, and my voice is drastically different, and that's pretty shocking to me. Can I speak in the other voice if I attempt to? Well, I believe that I can speak in the other voice a little bit if I choose to live in my highest excitement to the best of my ability in all circumstances. Now I'd like for you to feel the difference between these two energies. Feel the level of certainty that is here. Feel the level of certainty that is coming through this channel. And although the words may not be always precise, and although the thoughts may not be always precise as you fight them in your own brain and you come out backstage and try to speak into the microphone, I'd still like for you to feel the difference in the energies. This was an unbelievably pivotal moment for me, because it was one of the first felt experiences where I couldn't argue with myself that something was happening. Not only had I seen it externally in my friend, that was not my friend, but I felt it internally. And these recordings were just for me. I never planned on sharing them. I'm even editing out some gaps because they just sit. And I breathe for a really long time, and I'm just in deep internal conflict. But this moment was where I first started to recognize that, okay, maybe there's something here. And this journey continued kind of like this, where I would sit in my room by myself. I had just moved in with my brother for the first time, and we hardly talked. I hardly did anything other than work and channel, because I was so fascinated with this whole experience. I was so overtaken with fascination, and I couldn't stop. I knew that there was something here, and I kept going and kept going. And 6 months later, I finally came to this point where they started to essentially say, hey, you've been doing this for a while. You're thoroughly convinced. There's a whole path here for you if you want it. And this is your mission if you choose it. So will you?
David, I will come through very briefly and then allow you to go to bed and conclude your night. I would like to come through to confirm many of the things that you are beginning to see and get clear on. So the question is, as you review this, as you wake up to the belief systems and patterns of resistance that you sometimes face, as you run into the doubts that you sometimes face, the question is, what will you continue to do? How seriously will you take these insights? How seriously will you take your own resolve? How seriously will you take yourself? And there are sayings like, if you cannot trust yourself, then what can you trust? This is one of those times to trust. So if you choose to continue on this path, as you have seen it and understand it, take the time to come sit down, and we will stream how to best approach your debut.
The very next day, I grabbed my GoPro, I sat down, and I channeled, and I published that video on YouTube and shared it on my Facebook wall. And oh my goodness, it was the most terrifying thing I'd perhaps ever done, was to come out as a galactic channel to all of my Facebook friends, everyone I'd ever known. And the reception was mixed. I got about 2,000 views on it extremely quick. A bunch of people were sharing it, and I remember some people commenting on how I wasn't a clear channel. There was some guy who was like, notice the gaps the being is thinking. And I was thinking, no, that was me. I'm just thoroughly fighting this the whole way through. There were friends back from college and from high school who were posting Wikipedia links to delusions of grandeur and messaging me, asking me if I'm okay. Like, hey, I work in therapy. I see clients like you. Are you okay? But I'd spent so much time in this, deeply skeptical and deeply cognitive about all of this. And the conclusion I kept coming to again and again was, this is substantial. There's something really here. And that was the moment with B where I finally said yes. Like, okay, I'm not just going to do this by myself in my room. I'm going to be a channel out in the world, and I'm going to come out to the world in one of the most terrifying ways I ever did. And shortly after that, I held my first channel night. It was a couple months after that I sat down in front of a group of 20-ish people and channeled for them in person, and did it again the next month, and did it again a couple months later. And over this series of about 6 or 7 channel nights and a good amount of time sitting and just channeling by myself in written form as well, this first book called The Ascension Manual for Planet Earth came through, and it was all of the foundational teachings and everything that I was so fascinated by and everything I was so curious about. It all came through into this text. And this text ended up being the core teachings of B and the core teachings of all of these beings that were coming together to be able to share this message of, you are here for a reason. Here's what reality looks like. You're a body. You're a soul. Here's all of these things, all of these messages poured through. And rather than just stumble through the best summary I possibly can, I want to close this little segment, this intro to B, with a message from B to just kind of summarize the teachings that are here, to summarize what they teach and what they're all about. Because this is so much of a personal journey for me, and this has been so much about my personal journey, but in the end, it's not about me at all, and I know that. I want to help to normalize this, and I want to share as vulnerably as possible by going through the archives and digging up old recordings, but at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about my fascination. It's about these messages that I said yes to bringing through, and that I am just continually committed to bringing through, I hope, for the rest of my life. So without further ado, here's B, and here's the closing message for this little segment today. As we close this out, we'd love to reflect on David's own journey and how so much of this was hesitant the entire way. So much of this journey was baked with frustration, with doubt, with fear, with uncertainty. And so much of the world is currently operating from this place. As David mentioned at the very beginning, reflecting on his own journey, there's massive confusion, and so few individuals have a context of reality that allows them to continue to move forward, walking forward with certainty that their spiritual path or their highly intellectual path is truly the best path. There is a massive debate happening between science and between religion and spirituality, these other esoteric teachings. And the core of our message in that first book was to be able to resolve some of this, to be able to offer an alternative perspective to what this reality is, that it is physical, yes, but it is also non-physical. And neither is correct. They both exist and coexist and interact in a way through you, through the duality, through the synergy between your body, that is the physical matter of the earth, and between your soul, that is the etheric matter of this massive interconnected web of consciousness and energy. And this interaction is at the core of this massive undertaking of all that is, to continue to discover within itself what it wants to be. So in so many ways, this conflict in all of your lives of who you want to be and how you wish to present yourself in the world, how you wish to come out to the world, is the same conflict that all that is currently going through, sifting through many, many different values that are contradictory, some that work better than others, some that feel better than others, and some that are more true or wise than others. All of these conflicts are playing out all throughout all that is and are playing out within each and every one of you. And our primary goal with this whole first phase of this channeling phenomena and work with David is to be able to lay a context. But this whole second phase that's continuing to open up more and more through this second paradigm, through a co-creation between David and Miriam, is not just laying a context that David and I did through our work together through a business called Indivinus that no longer is in operation. That foundation is now being built upon with the second paradigm. And the second paradigm is exploring what it looks like to live from a fully anchored place where you have that context, where you understand what this world is, and where you say yes to fulfilling your soul mission, both S-O-L-E and S-O-U-L mission of bringing that essence that you truly are, that soul essence into your body, saying yes to your soul throughout all of those conflicts, all of that pushback from your evolutionary, biological, and ancestral programming. Bringing that essence into your body and then allowing your body and allowing that co-creation of soul values and your soul essence made manifest in physical form, allowing that co-creation to radiate out into the world to bring that change to planet Earth. This is the core of what the work is at the second paradigm and what this whole second phase of this work is. And David, along with Miriam, who has been living and embodying and downloading and even channeling many of these teachings for a long time, are coming together to be embodiments and to be leaders and to hold up a flag of possibility for all spiritual practitioners around the world who are wishing to settle into a deeply grounded, a deeply logical, and deeply impactful way of being. So this is who we are. This is David's journey with myself and with the being that is also within our oversoul Juvael. This is his own journey, and this is who I am. This is a bit about my teachings, about my interactions with David and how this whole journey began, and my confronting nature to David, asking him to take the leap to bring his essence even further into the world, asking him to take the leap to bring these messages even further out to the world. But ultimately, this introduction to be, to myself, is really more of an introduction to being. It is really an introduction to this second paradigm, to a whole new way of living, of being, and of radiating truth and values that everyone across the board has been voting for and asking for, calling your soul here. This is a story not just of this co-creation over here between myself and David, but of a massive play that is happening throughout the cosmos and here on Earth, of souls recognizing the mission that they came to this civilization with, and then saying yes to that mission. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your awareness. Thank you for your openness to the odd aspects of this phenomena. Thank you for your openness to something that in the current context of your reality and of your civilization makes absolutely no sense. The very fact that you were called here speaks to the amount of inner compassing that you were doing, following your own inner truth, following your own soul's knowing, following your own intuition, being open to things that, regardless of how accepted they are, feel abundantly true and light. It is a pleasure to be able to deliver these messages, and we look forward to the possibility of continuing this discussion and relationship with you to help lay context and to help you emerge into even more of who you came here to be. Farewell for now. We'll speak to you at a later time.